Few families have shaped modern Syria like the Assads. From the rise of Hafez al-Assad to the downfall of Bashar al-Assad, their rule tells a story of power, resilience, and tragedy. To understand their legacy, we begin with Syria's tumultuous history after World War II. In 1946, Syria gained independence from French colonial rule, but the young nation struggled with instability. Between 1949 and 1970, it saw multiple coups, changing alliances, and short-lived political experiments. From Shukri al-Quwatli, Syria's first president, to Hosni al-Zaim, who led Syria's first military in a 1949 coup, but was quickly overthrown. Then it was Adib al-Shishakli, from 1953-1954, who centralized power but faced opposition. After that, the United Arab Republic from 1958-1961, a brief merger with Egypt under Gamal Abdel Nasser, ended in disappointment. By the 1960s, the Ba'ath Party, a pan-Arab socialist movement, seized power, laying the foundation for the Assad Dynasty. In 1970, Hafez al-Assad, a former Air Force commander, took control in a bloodless coup. Known as the Corrective Movement, this marked the beginning of Assad's 30-year rule. Hafez al-Assad's rule from 1971 to 2000 defined modern Syria through authoritarian control, strategic foreign alliances, and brutal crackdowns. Domestically, he used the Mukhabarat, intelligence agencies, to suppress opposition and consolidate power, creating a climate of fear and compliance. On the international stage, Hafez aligned Syria with the Soviet Union, gaining military and economic support. He supported Palestinian resistance and intervened in Lebanon's civil war to assert regional dominance. The 1982 Hama Massacre epitomized his ruthless governance. Faced with an Islamist uprising, Hafez's forces destroyed much of the city, killing tens of thousands, sending a clear message to dissenters. His legacy is one of authoritarianism and regional ambition, laying the groundwork for both the Assad dynasty's longevity and the fractures that would later destabilize Syria. Bashar al-Assad was an unlikely heir. Trained as a doctor in London, he was thrust into leadership after his elder brother Basil's death in a car crash. At first, many saw him as a modernizer. When Bashar al-Assad assumed the presidency in 2000, many Syrians harbored cautious optimism that his rule might bring reform and modernization. His early presidency saw a mix of fleeting liberalization, selective economic reforms, and mounting socio-economic challenges, shaping the country's trajectory before the Arab Spring. Bashar's ascent to power was accompanied by a brief period of political openness known as the Damascus Spring. Intellectuals, activists, and civil society leaders organized salons and forums to discuss democracy and human rights. State-controlled media enjoyed temporary relaxation, and Syrians experienced unprecedented internet access. However, this period of hope was short-lived. Within a year, the regime reverted to suppressing dissent. Activists were arrested, organizations disbanded, and any calls for deeper political reform were silenced. The initial reforms appeared to be a calculated move to bolster Bashar's image rather than a genuine shift in governance. His focus soon shifted to consolidating power and ensuring the regime's survival. Bashar introduced partial economic reforms, opening private banks, encouraging foreign investment, and promoting limited market liberalization. These measures aimed to modernize Syria's economy and reduce reliance on state-controlled industries. While these changes stimulated some sectors, they were marred by systemic corruption and cronyism. A small elite, often tied to the Assad family or loyalists, reaped most of the benefits. For the majority of Syrians, rising income inequality and stagnant living standards eroded any economic optimism. These simmering grievances, combined with decades of repression, set the stage for the Arab Spring. Syria has faced extreme turmoil from 2011 to 2024, marked by a brutal civil war, foreign involvement, and devastating consequences for its people. The conflict began with protests calling for reform, part of the broader Arab Spring. The Assad government responded with violent repression, leading to a full-scale war. Various groups, including rebel forces, ISIS, and Kurdish factions, fought against Assad's government, causing widespread destruction. Foreign powers, such as Russia and Iran, supported Assad, while the US and other countries backed different opposition groups. This turned the war into a proxy conflict, with multiple outside interests fueling the violence. Hundreds of thousands were killed, and millions were displaced, both inside Syria and abroad. Cities like Aleppo were devastated, and the country's infrastructure collapsed. The war caused severe famine, disease, and economic collapse, leaving much of the population struggling to survive. Despite heavy losses, Assad stayed in power, helped by military support from Russia and Iran. In 2015, Russia's involvement helped Assad regain control of major cities. However, parts of Syria remained outside Assad's control, particularly in the north and northeast, where Kurdish and rebel groups held strong. ISIS rose to power, capturing large territories in Syria, but by 2019 it was largely defeated. The Kurdish forces, supported by the US, took control of parts of northern Syria, creating tensions with Turkey. Turkey launched operations against Kurdish groups in the region. By late 2024, the Assad regime was collapsing under mounting pressure from rebel forces and internal divisions. In a dramatic turn, rumors emerged that Bashar al-Assad fled Syria aboard a Russian plane. Unconfirmed reports suggest his aircraft may have crashed near Homs, though others claim he arrived safely in Moscow, seeking asylum. As Damascus descended into chaos, factions within the Syrian military reportedly clashed, with whispers of a potential coup led by Maher al-Assad, Bashar's brother. Meanwhile, Russian forces were seen reinforcing positions in Syria, fueling speculation about their next moves. The Assad family's reign over Syria has ended, but the nation faces a long road to recovery. Rebel forces celebrate their victory, but questions loom. Who will lead? And how will Syria rebuild after over a decade of war? The fall of the Assad Dynasty is a turning point, but it is not the end of Syria's challenges. As world powers like Russia and Iran recalibrate their roles, Syrians are left grappling with the hope of freedom and the burden of rebuilding.
Allahu Akbar!